Something's going on over there with those duckies. Hello everyone, welcome back to Howling Hoosier Outdoors, and today we're going to be going over how to make this Balearic sling, or Balearic style sling, using nothing but, ducks are still going at it, using nothing but some 4-ply jute that I got from the local craft store. So, let's get right into it. Alright, so some of the defining, those ducks, man. Alright, so some of the defining characteristics about a Balearic sling is, first is your split shot here in the middle, and then your integrated woven finger loop. And your finger loop and your pouch are going to be about shoulder's length from your thumb, or from your thumb to your shoulder. So when you're making that, to get those measurements, you're going to need a fathom. Now a fathom is simply 1 wingspan. So when you're making it and measuring out your jute, all you're going to need is, that's not ideal, all you're going to need is 1 fathom, because when it doubles over, it's going to be about 1 wingspan. So you got your sling here. When it's out fully, it is about 1 wingspan. So to get that, you have 1 jute, 1 fathom, and then because it's going to be doubled over, you're going to need a 2nd fathom. Now, I personally like to then go a center and do 1/2 fathom, just so that way I have extra material to work with. I find that it makes those measurements a little bit easier. So you're going to need 3 of those double fathoms. So we got 1, measure it out. There's your 2nd string. And your 3rd. Okay, so now that you have your 3 strands of 2.5 fathoms, you're going to find your middle point. And the way that I personally do that is I just find my ends of one, my ends of the other side, put them together, and then I just meet in the middle by feeling it down like that. And that's just going to create a bite. And this is going to be the location of your finger hole. So from here, what I will do is I'll take that middle point and I'm going to start a braid. And if you don't know how to braid, I'm going to give a good close-up here in a second. But I'm going to do about a braid that is about the length of my hand. Okay, so we have our middle point of our fathoms of our string, and so now we have our braid, and we're going to take our left, go over our middle, and then our right, go over middle. So then left over middle, and then right over middle. Left over middle, right over middle. And you're just going to do that until you have an amount that is about the width of your hand. Okay, now that I have braided enough that is about the width of my hand, we're going to double this over, and we're going to pair our left 2 strands, our middle center strands, and our right 2 strands. So now that these are 2, this is going to be a double braid, where once again, you go left with both, right with both. You want to make sure that your braid is nice and tight. Left and right. And once again, if you have to stop and untangle occasionally because things will get tangled up, that's okay. Just don't lose your braid. And what that does is that will create your finger loop. Okay, I'm going to still give you guys another look angle of how we do that braid. So you have your loop, you've got your left braid, your center braid, and your right braid. your left 2 strands are going to go to the center, and then your right 2 strands are going to go to the center. And you're going to do that until it is time to make your split pouch. And when it's time to do that, you'll know because you're going to loop this around your thumb, and you're going to braid until that braid hits your shoulder. Alright guys, so now we are at about as long from my shoulder to my thumb. So now what we're going to do is right now we have 6 strands. Those strands are going to get broken up into 2 groups of 3 for our pouch. So we have our left 3 and our right 3. And what that will do is that'll be 1/2 of your pouch. Then your right will be the other half of your pouch. So you want that pouch to be about as long as the width of your hand. So we're going to break this up into a single braid. Remember, left over right, right over left, just like that. So we have our right 3, we have our left 3. Right now we're focusing on our left pouch, or the left half of the pouch. So we're going to braid that out until we get it about as long as our hand. As long as the width of our hand, I should say. So still a little short. And there we go. So now we're going to come over to our right side, and you might notice that you have one that's kind of dangling a little lower than the others. That's the one that I want to move to center first. So I'll move him over. So right over center, then left over center. And then just braid it till it's the same length as your left side. Okay, so now you have your braids that are exactly the same. So that's going to be 1/2 of your pouch and then the other half of your pouch. Now you still have your 6 strands. So you're going to break these up back into 3 groups of 2 for your double braid again. So you have your left 2 strands here. Then you have your center 2 strands. And then you have your right 2 strands. And just like with our original double braid, we're just going to go left over right, and then right over left. And if you see any weird gaps or anything like that, you can dress those down. Probably just means that I need to be a little bit tighter on that braid. There we go. So we have our left, our center, and our right. I'm going to move our left over center and move our right over center. And we just continue on with that double braid. Okay, so now that we've got a good start on our double braid, or on the second half of our sling, what we want this to do is taper as we're going. So what we're going to do is we're going to look back at our thumb hole side, or our finger loop side, and we're going to break this up into thirds. And as our double braid on the other side gets longer, at every third we're going to want to remove 1 strand. So by the end of this sling, we're going to end up having 3 strands as opposed to 6 strands. So what that looks like is right now I am about a third of the way through our sling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the rightmost string and I'm just going to cut it off. From there, I still treat it like a double braid until that runs out, and then I'll have 1 strand that has 2 strings, the second strand that has 2 strings, and then 1 strand that has 1 string. I hope that that makes sense, but you can see that we have the little short guy here, and that's just going to have 1 string once I get woven up to it. Okay, so now we have our 3 strands, we started this guy here, we just cut that guy off. So now we're going over and weaving that guy in. Now you'll want to weave this out to where it is slightly longer than your finger loop side when you fold it in half. Alright, so once you have braided it to where it is slightly longer, oh, out of frame there. Once you have braided it to where it is slightly longer than your overall loop, you're just going to tie an overhand knot. And what that's going to do is that's going to keep all these ends from unraveling. Then you tighten her down. There we go. Sorry guys, camera's being weird. You're just going to tie an overhand knot. And then when you cut this, you're going to want to cut it about a thumb's length longer. And what that does is it prevents your knot from blowing out when you're actually slinging and using it. So when you cut this, you want to cut this about a thumb's length further than your end knot. And what that's going to do is it's going to prevent your knot from blowing out when you're actually using your sling. And for these last little tails that you have here, I like to unravel them and make them all nice and floofy. And what that does is it's going to dampen that supersonic crack that you get when you're actively slinging. And a lot of people like it, a lot of people think it's cool, but when it comes to scaring animals and scaring everybody else around you, it might not be ideal. So I like to be a little bit more sneaky. And then just overuse, these will start to fray out, much like this guy that I made a couple days ago. And eventually they get all nice and floofy like that. Alright everyone, so now what you have should look exactly like this guy here. So just to make sure that all of our measurements are right, I'm going to take my thumb, I'm going to throw it in the finger loop, make sure that that pocket, that basket is sitting right at my shoulder. When I fold it in half, I have one end slightly longer than the other, and what that does is when I'm actively gripping it, it gives me something to hold on to that's a little bit more secure than if I was just holding on to something that was right at, because then that might be right in the middle of my hand and it's just not comfortable for me. But as you experiment and play around with this will, you're going to have your own preferences and whatnot. So the reason I like the Balearic sling is because it can hold a wide variety of ammunition. Actually, why don't I show you? Alright, so I went out and I grabbed a couple pieces of ammunition that I've used in the past for my slings. The first off that I want to talk about is the golf ball. Now this guy here, they actually make foam practice golf balls, and that I have found sits really, really nicely in the basket of your sling. One of the bigger issues that I do have with them is that they are extremely light, and that can often mess up your throw a little bit. But for practicing in an environment where there's a lot of windows, maybe you don't want to dent someone's vehicle, these guys are a good option. Now, you saw how small the golf ball was. Now you have the tennis ball. And the way that this split pouch works is it can actually wrap up your tennis ball and seat that really nicely as well. And the tennis ball works really, really well because if you have a pet or a dog or something like that, you can throw it, get some good exercise for them, get some good exercise and training in for yourself. Now, the ones that I am really proud of are these conical bullets that I've made using air dry clay from the craft store. And these take about 3, 4, or 5 days to harden up and dry and get solid, but when they are finished, these are as close as I have gotten without using lead to original clay ammunition that I've seen people use from Balearic slingers back, thousands of years ago. And these guys fit perfectly inside your pouch, almost like they were made for it. You can see that there. And when they throw, they make a really nice, cool whizzing sound going through the air. Your clay that they use in it is biodegradable, so it's environmentally friendly if that's a concern for you. yeah, so these are just really, really cool. I'll do a video on making these in the future. So some things that you can do to upgrade your game on this guy is you're going to want to take a lighter and you're going to want to burn off all these nasty little hairs, because they can deteriorate over time. They can weaken your sling over time if they're not taken care of. You can soak your sling in water, which will cause your fibers to expand, and then you can stretch it out, making it just a little bit more flexible, because right now it's kind of stiff because it's freshly made. And then when you're done doing that, you're going to want to burn it again, and then you're going to want to oil it or wax it. And when you do that entire process, which I will do a video on in the future, but I just wanted to get the DIY stuff out of the way, you're going to end up with something like this guy, which he's a noodle. Like this is like a wet noodle, like a wet piece of spaghetti, and that's really what you're looking for optimal performance out of these things. So yeah, that's my take on the Balearic Sling. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, questionable life choices, or epiphanies, please feel free to leave them in the comments section. Look forward from hearing y'all, and stay awesome, folks.